All right. We are now recording. Welcome to the overview of the Tennessee Teacher of the Year process application part 2. I'm Sarah Brown, and I'm the coordinator of educator recognition for the department, and I'm on the educator effectiveness team. These are our 4 best for all squares. We live down in the yellow educator one. So Tennessee will set a new path for the education profession and be the top state in which to become an educator, remain a teacher, and leader for all. This first slide is our program goals. The goal of the Tennessee Teacher of the Year program is to recognize and celebrate the wealth of excellent teachers that exist across the state. We applaud teachers who devote their professional lives to enriching the lives of Tennessee students who demonstrate exceptional gains in student achievement. So this webinar will provide an overview of the Part 2 application and best practices. First, we're going to look at the review of region level selection, then the application components. So we'll go over response questions and addressing common missteps. We also will look at the video response questions and best practices and supporting documentation and best practices. And then we'll talk a little bit about Part 2 application scoring. So our learning objectives, following completion of this training, learners will be able to identify the components of the Tennessee Teacher of the Year Part 2 application and identify best practices for approaching each component. Just some norms as we go through this process. Please remain on mute throughout the session until asked to unmute and share. And if you have any questions or comments throughout the presentation, please put them in the chat. With that, to get started, please answer the following question. What is one thing you hope to gain from this session? Better understand the requirements of this round, expectation on video questions, clarity on video requirements. Okay, some expectations, next steps, the video. Okay, that is a new component, so I anticipated lots of questions on that one. Excellent. All right, we will cover all of those things. All right, so first, just a review of how you came to this step. If you were selected as a region level semifinalist, the Tennessee Teacher of the Year, I provided the application to you by email by April 1st. Part 2 applications need to be submitted by May 12th. The Part 2 application contains 2 new written response questions, an opportunity to submit additional supporting documentation, a professional resume, 3 letters of recommendation, a professional biography, a professional headshot, and a 3 to 5 minute video. The entire Part 2 application will be scored by a statewide scoring committee who will identify 1 finalist in each region of the state for a total of 9 region finalists. All applicants will be notified of their application decision by June 2nd. All right, so now let's look more closely at the new response questions. Applicants will respond to 2 responses that can be up to 750 words each. The first one is in regards to leadership experience. The Tennessee Teacher of the Year is a leader among their peers in and outside of the classroom. This leadership is primarily realized through serving on the Commissioner's Teacher Advisory Council. The Teacher Advisory Council aims to empower members to act in the following roles. Advisory Council members will be poised, engaging, and articulate advocates for the department's vision and strategic priorities. Ambassadors, Advisory Council members will represent Tennessee and the education profession by engaging with internal and external stakeholders. Advisory council members will use their expertise to provide feedback to inform the department's initiative, resources, and policies. And champions, advisory council members will promote and uphold best practices in their schools, districts, communities, and regions. So the question for this one is, how have your previous experiences prepared you to engage and lead within these domains? The second question, the Tennessee Teacher of the Year serves as spokesperson and representative for teachers and students across the state. If you are selected as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year, what will be your primary message? What will you communicate to your colleagues and to the general public? Again, 750 words. You have a little more depth this time. So now let's look at how to avoid a few common missteps. A strong response is going to look different for each written response prompt. Guiding questions can help you ensure that components of your application complement one another and give the most comprehensive view of your excellence as an educator. So think about, are you answering the question? So take time to unpack the question and think about what it's asking. So for example, in question 1, how have your previous experiences prepared you to engage and lead with these domains? So include evidence of how you served in leadership capacity in and outside of the classroom. First thing, approach that question by thinking about how have your previous experiences prepared you to engage and lead within the domains. Then think about ways that you have served in a leadership capacity in and outside of the classroom. So what areas of education are you passionate about? How have you been a leader in those areas? And then clearly list and describe the leadership roles in which you've participated. Then think about how they prepared you. So what ways do they build your skills as a leader? An ambassador for fellow teachers, an advisor for your fellow teachers, administrators in our community, a champion for education. Additionally, also connect your actions as a teacher leader to tangible results where possible. I also encourage you to ask someone else to read your response. You might ask if they can determine the question being addressed. Think about, are you answering all the parts of the question? So use that unpacking strategy to ensure that you plan for and address all parts of the prompt with sufficient detail. The next piece, are you giving a comprehensive picture of yourself as an educator throughout the process? So try to avoid using the same example or idea in your response to each question. Your goal is to give a complete picture. Are you writing to show what leading looks like in your classroom, school, and community? So think about writing to show, not to tell. Use examples and stories of things that students and parents or colleagues have done or said. Show how your work has prepared you to engage and lead through examples and evidence. Highlight your accomplishments rather than being humble about them. One thing I suggest is to first outline your ideas. Think about building on your writing, so providing a clear example and how it helped you, and then developing the story. And as you write through the word count in your draft. So often it takes writers some time to get to the best parts of their responses. So sometimes beginning by writing more than you need helps, and then strategically edit to meet that word count. So the third part of this is the additional documentation. And this section includes a professional resume, 3 letters of recommendation, a professional biography, and optional supporting documentation. And we'll look at those more deeply. Okay, so your professional resume. This one requires a little bit different perspective than tailoring a resume when you're looking at a new job. The primary goal of this one is to provide information about how your previous experiences have positioned you as a strong candidate for Teacher of the Year. With this in mind, you should think strategically about which of your experiences, and further what aspects of your experiences, align to the Teacher of the Year criteria. And your resume should highlight these experiences. So at minimum, the professional resume includes the following required components. So education. So this is the section that you list any degrees that you have earned or are currently completing. Licenses and endorsement areas. In this section, you should list your valid license and all valid endorsements. your professional experience. So you should list your most recent jobs and associated responsibilities. Be sure to note significant accomplishments in each role as well as key features of each position. Okay. In your professional leadership section, you should list any professional leadership positions you've held. That could include school level responsibilities such as leading a PLC or student organization. District level responsibilities might be leading professional development, or even region level responsibilities like serving as a pre-service mentor or cooperating teacher. In the community and leadership and involvement, you should list any leadership positions you've held or community organizations you've been involved with. This might include nonprofits, faith-based organizations, or service organizations. And then awards and recognition. List any awards or recognition you've received for your work as an educator. And it could include your school and district level Teacher of the Year award, community awards, any published articles, presentations, featured news items, anything like that. Applicants should also consider the following best practices when completing the resume. So because your contact information is included elsewhere in the application, you can save space by leaving out your address and contact information on the resume. Similarly, since the process includes letters of recommendation, you can also save space by leaving out any references. Remember to emphasize skills and experience related to the Teacher of the Year criteria. Write your responsibilities using the action plus results format and begin with an action verb to describe the type of work you did. For example, led 8th grade social studies professional learning community to analyze and accelerate student learning, which resulted in a 15% increase in student proficiency on the TNReady. Be sure to define all acronyms. For example, school representative for the Tennessee Education Association. We have so many acronyms in education. Really make sure to define what they are. Proofread carefully to ensure that your resume has no spelling, grammar, or formatting errors. Again, please have someone look at it to catch things that you do not see. Okay, so your letters of recommendation are going to serve as critical external perspective of your excellence from colleagues and supervisors, parents, students, and community members. So one letter must be from your principal, but you can choose who writes the remaining 2 letters. You should think strategically about who will provide the most compelling and clear evidence that the applicant demonstrates the qualities of a Teacher of the Year awardee. In general, every letter should be 1 page in length, typed, and in a PDF format. Make sure to include evidence of the applicant's strength in, on, or more of the Teacher of the Year criteria. Applicants may submit handwritten, translated, or transcribed letters if the letter's from a student or a parent or an adult caregiver. Transcribed or translated letters must include the name and the signature of the transcriber or translator and may not be transcribed or translated by the applicant. Applicants also should consider the following best practices when completing the letters of recommendation. It's recommended that applicants share the Teacher of the Year criteria with those who will be writing the letters of recommendation, as well as identify several key criteria for each letter writer to focus on. Reviewers will pay special attention to how an applicant's accomplishments have impacted student success. In the letters of recommendation, student success can be documented either anecdotally or with statistical evidence. A mix of both makes for a stronger application. Student success can come in many forms. Some examples are increased academic achievement, decreased disciplinary referrals, increased enrollment in challenging curriculum, increased participation in enrichment activities, increased student confidence and self-esteem, increased time spent in service to the community, just for some ideas. Now, to reduce the impact of implicit bias on our awards and recognition programs, we may redact identifying information from letters of recommendation before the selection committee begins their review. So to support this, we encourage you to use words and phrases like our school and our community and a colleague instead of naming specific places or individuals. You did do this in the first one as well, so I know that you are old hat at this. Now, your professional biography is used by the Tennessee Department of Education when responding to requests for information about finalists, as well as in public releases and promotional materials. So the professional biography should articulate your influences for entering the teaching profession and your greatest contributions and accomplishments as an educator. The professional biography must not exceed 250 words and must be written in third person. Some things to think about when you are writing your biography. Why did I seek a career in education? What experiences led me to the place that I am today? What's my teaching philosophy? What degrees do I hold? What are my greatest contributions to the teaching profession? What are significant accomplishments I've made in the teaching profession? And what awards or recognition have I received? And I'll leave that one there for just a second. So your supporting documentation, much like last time, is completely optional, but it is permitted to provide additional evidence for references made in those extended responses. Some examples of supporting documentation include student work, teacher effectiveness data, lesson plans, parent or community communications materials, etc. Just make sure that all supporting documentation adheres to your school and or district's privacy policy. So making sure that if you do have photos of students, those students have media releases on file at the school. I do not need them. They just need to be at the school because we don't want to violate anyone's rights or anything like that. So it's important to note that the application, including supporting documentation, will be redacted for any identifying information to reduce potential and unconscious bias. It is best to ensure your supporting documentation is still easily understood without like logos and names and stuff. You do get 5 pages of supporting documentation this time. Additionally, applicants should consider the following best practices when compiling supporting documentation. Directly connect that supporting documentation to the written responses, but do not rely on supporting documentation to make your case. It should not be a substitute for high quality explanation in the narrative or stand alone as extraneous information. Its effective supporting documentation should extend the reviewer's understanding of your written response by directly connecting to aspects of your narrative where additional evidence, such as like student work, may make things more clear. Make sure to ensure that each page of the supporting documentation demonstrates the Teacher of the Year criteria. So in some cases, you may identify that the written response prompts do not permit you to share characteristics of your teaching or specific experiences that fully demonstrate your ability to serve as Teacher of the Year. Like the best practices above, effective supporting documentation can serve to expand your reviewers' understanding of your ability to meet the Teacher of the Year criteria and to ensure reviewers understand what they're viewing and why it's important. So be sure to provide notes with relevant information and context for any materials not directly addressed in the narrative. And we had a question from Sarah. Is it still suggested to include only 3 pictures per page? Best practice, thinking about this as not so many photos that a reviewer is going to have to zoom in to look at it. This is not like high school chemistry cheat sheet. Like, make sure that it is appropriately viewable. I would say 3 to 4 pictures is plenty on a page. You should not assume, that's a good question, John, should not assume that the reviewers are going to have access to your responses and supporting documentation. They might. It might be that you have a reviewer that happened to review your part 1, but they don't have your names. Your name, you were coded in part 1. So in part 2, they will have your name, but they won't necessarily be able to attach it to somebody before. But your reviewers are not from your part of the state. So they likely won't know you. And if they do, we have them swap. So I hope did that answer that question? Okay. I guess the second part of that, if you want to reuse supporting documentation, you definitely can do that. It's up to you. I didn't read the second part of the question. I skimmed the first part. I'm sorry. Okay, so answering in the chat, true or false? Choosing not to submit supporting documentation will negatively impact your application score. That's a trick question. Correct, everyone. That is false. Choosing not to submit supporting documentation is not going to negatively impact your application score. Okay, so let's look at the video response. This is a new addition that I think is actually going to be lovely for these applications. What you will respond to one video question, and it has a 5-minute time limit. So 3 to 5 minutes. Your video is going to address the following prompt: describe a content lesson or unit that defines you as a teacher. How did you engage students of all backgrounds and abilities in the learning? How did that learning and your teaching influence your students? How are your beliefs and teaching demonstrated in this lesson? So a checklist of questions to help you address common missteps. Are you answering the question? Are you answering all parts of the question? So thinking what we tell our kids for testing, right? Are you answering all of it? Are you giving a comprehensive picture of yourself as a leader throughout all your responses? And are you telling a story to show what that looks like? What leadership and learning looks like in your classroom? Make sure that reviewers have viewing access throughout the review period. So one of the things that I've run into in other aspects is people will send me videos from like their school SharePoint, and I can't access that. So make sure that when you send me a link, you either create a YouTube link, you put it in Google Drive, but make sure to set the settings to share Dropbox or some kind of a file sharing website. It is important. It needs to make sure that it goes to anyone with a link can view it, so your reviewers can actually see it. The other part is please don't delete that video or move it until you've received notification from me that scoring has been completed. So don't, don't just be like, oh, we're done. Because if you delete it, then your reviewers will not be able to see it. Any questions about that part of it? I have more. I just want to make sure to stop and check. Okay. Maximizing the quality of your audio. Clear audio is critical to a good video. So if possible, be sure to record it in a quiet room and use earbuds with a microphone, or if you're not able to do that, use an external microphone or earbuds. Stay within foot and a half of the microphone on your recording device. Again, make sure to follow all those school and district level media policies. If you choose to include photos or videos of your students, you in your classroom, just make sure that you're following all the school and district level media policies. Let's see. We've already talked about media releases, so that's not something we need to go over again. All right, any questions about the video? You can be as creative as you want. So maybe you show any references to our lesson during the video. You can absolutely do that. You can show references to the lesson. You can show part of your lesson. You can, show video of the lesson and have, talk like over, do an overlay of, your commentary. You can really approach this however you want and as creatively as you want to do. Okay. So part 2, scoring. Overall, each response question will be assessed according to the degree to which the response adheres to standard grammar, spelling, punctuation conventions, answers the question clearly and concisely, and provides a compelling narrative that speaks to the applicant's ability to serve as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year. The video response is going to be assessed according to the degree to which the response has the following desirable qualities: that delivery is made according to instructions, so the topic and the time limit. Candidate displays qualities of confidence, optimism, and sincerity. That the message is well organized and easy to follow and understand and relevant. Lastly, the entire application will be given a holistic score, including both the response questions as well as the additional documentation. The holistic score will be assigned based on the degree to which the applicant demonstrates the Tennessee Teacher of the Year and National Teacher of the Year criteria. Each of the applications will be reviewed by 2 to 3 reviewers from across the state, and the top score in each region will be selected as a region level finalist. All finalists will be notified of their application decision by June 2nd. And instructions for completing the interview will be shared with region level finalists at that time. Any questions? Okay. The Tennessee Teacher of the Year website includes specific program criteria with resources for applicants and just specific information. I also will email you a guidebook that has just finally come through, and that will help a little bit with these response questions as well, but most of it is what we have covered. How many finalists in the region are there? So there is 1 finalist per region. The Director of Schools page said 2022-23. What do you mean the Director of Schools page? Like the signature page? No. Oh, okay, I'll fix that. I thought we got the updated one. I'll send that out. I'll get the updated one. Oh, semifinalists in each region. So at this point, there's 3 in each region. So there's 27. And then it'll narrow down to 9. So we have the core regions, the first, East, Southeast, Upper Cumberland, Mid Cumberland, South Central, Northwest, Southwest, and then Shelby, and all those municipals are one by themselves. So that's where we get that 9 from. So right now there's 3 in each of those areas. All right, we're going to answer in our chat. As a result of this webinar, what next step will you take to prepare for the Tennessee Teacher of the Year process? Continue outlining responses, work on your video. Make an outline of all my material, contacting potential references, rewrite. Yep. Reach out to coworkers. Headshots. We didn't talk about headshots, but yes, your headshots. Start on the video and essays. The headshots, we didn't really talk about it because that seems like a straightforward thing, but it needs to be a professional headshot, but it doesn't have to be like in front of a backdrop. It can be your school photo that goes in the yearbook. It can be a good, photo in front of, just in front of the lockers or something like that. And it can be more candid. It doesn't have to be, go down to the JCPenney in the photo or wherever. That was just like the thing that came off the top of my head. It's the closest one. All right. Outline my response questions and work on video. Okay. Well, thank you. If you have any questions, let me know. And I am going to stop recording now.